The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale air conditioning. I sat there in my black blazer and teal blouse, hands folded in my lap, trying to keep my breathing steady. The pearl necklace my late husband gave me for our 30th anniversary felt tight around my throat. Or maybe that was just the weight of what was happening. My son Michael sat 3 rows behind me with his wife. My daughter Sharon was beside them, arms crossed, staring straight ahead like I wasn't even there. They were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. At 66 years old, after raising them, sacrificing everything, loving them through every scraped knee and broken heart. They were telling a judge I'd lost my mind, all because I fell in love again. The bailiff called the case number. My lawyer, a kind woman named Mrs. Patterson, touched my arm gently. Elijah sat in the back row. I could feel his presence even without turning around, steady, calm. Like he'd been since the day we met. The judge was an older black man with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked tired, like he'd seen too many families tear each other apart in this room. The wooden benches creaked as people shifted. The American flag hung limply in the corner. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, catching dust particles in the air. It felt surreal, like I was watching my life happen to someone else. Michael's lawyer stood up first. Expensive suit, slicked back hair, the kind of man who probably charged more per hour than I used to make in a week as a nurse. Your Honor, we're here today because Mrs. Dorothy Green is no longer capable of making sound decisions regarding her finances, her health, or her personal relationships. My chest tightened. I wanted to look back at Elijah, to draw strength from his eyes. But I kept my gaze forward. She has become involved with a man 17 years her junior. A man who, we believe, is exploiting her vulnerability and isolation. The words hung in the air like poison. I felt my hands start to shake. I pressed them together harder. We have documented evidence of erratic behavior, impulsive financial decisions, and emotional instability, the lawyer continued, shuffling papers like my life was just another case file. Sharon didn't look at me once. Michael stared at the table in front of him. Not at me. Never at me. The judge leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. His dark eyes moved from the lawyer to me, then back again. And what does Mrs. Green have to say about all this? Mrs. Patterson stood smoothly. Her voice was clear and strong. Your Honor, my client has prepared a letter, a personal statement. She would like the court's permission to have it read aloud. The opposing lawyer objected immediately. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The judge raised one hand. Silence fell like a curtain. He looked at me for the first time. Really looked at me. His gaze wasn't cold. It wasn't pitying either. It was considering. And I don't know what he saw in my face. But after a long moment, he nodded slowly. I'll allow it, Mrs. Patterson handed him the folded letter. My hands had been shaking when I wrote it 3 nights ago, sitting at my kitchen table with Elijah making tea in the background. The sound of the kettle whistling. The warmth of his hand on my shoulder when I'd started crying halfway through. The judge unfolded it slowly, adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and began to read. The courtroom held its breath. Have you ever been judged just for wanting to love again? If this beginning feels familiar to you, subscribe to this channel and share your story in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone is the strongest medicine there is. My name is Dorothy Ann Green. I'm 66 years old. I've been a widow for 11 years. My husband, Robert, died of a heart attack on a Tuesday morning in April. He was reading the newspaper at the breakfast table, complaining about the crossword puzzle being too easy. He said his chest felt tight. Thought it was indigestion from the bacon. I told him to sit down. Called 911. He was gone before the ambulance even turned onto our street. I remember the coffee pot was still on. The toast had just popped up. His reading glasses were folded next to his plate. Everything stopped that day. The world kept moving, but I didn't. For a long time, I didn't know how to restart. Didn't even know if I wanted to. I have two children. Michael is 41. Sharon is 38. Both married, both with kids of their own. Michael has 3 boys ages 12, 9, and 6. Sharon has 2 girls 10 and 7. When Robert died, they were there for the funeral. They helped me sort through his things. Packed up his clothes for donation. Took his tools to Michael's garage. Divided his books between them. They called every Sunday for the first few months. "How are you doing, Mom?" "I'm fine, sweetheart." But I wasn't fine. I was drowning. The calls became every other week. Then once a month. Then only on holidays. I told myself it was normal. They had their own lives. Their own families. Jobs and kids and mortgages and soccer practices. I understood. I did. But understanding doesn't make loneliness hurt less. I kept busy the way widows do. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays, shelving books and helping people find what they needed. I joined a book club that met every third Thursday. We read mostly mysteries and historical fiction. I took up gardening, even though I'd never been good at it. My tomatoes always came out sad and lopsided. Robert used to tease me about that. Said I had a black thumb instead of a green one. I'd laugh and tell him to stick to his crosswords. God, I missed that. The teasing, the easy comfort of someone knowing you so well they could predict your punchlines. The house felt too big without him. Robert's chair stayed empty in the living room. Dark brown leather, worn soft in all the right places. I couldn't bring myself to move it. Some nights I'd sit across from it, eating dinner on a TV tray, pretending he was still there. Pretending he'd look up from his paper and ask me how my day was. But he never did. The grandkids came over sometimes. Birthdays, Christmas, Easter egg hunts in the backyard. The occasional weekend when Michael and Jennifer needed a babysitter because they had a wedding or a work event. I lived for those days. I'd bake cookies from scratch. Chocolate chip, because that's what they liked. Set up games in the backyard, hide and seek, tag. Sometimes we'd make obstacle courses out of pool noodles and hula hoops. I'd let them stay up to late watching movies. Make popcorn with extra butter. Let them have one more glass of water even though I knew it was a stalling tactic. When they hugged me goodbye, I'd hold on just a little too long. And when they left, the silence came back, heavier than before. Like the house knew it was supposed to be full of noise and life, and my existence alone wasn't enough. I started talking to myself just to hear a voice. Need to water the tomatoes today. Oh, that's a good sale on chicken. Where did I put my reading glasses? I knew it wasn't healthy, but I didn't know how to fix it. My doctor, Dr. Martinez, told me I was depressed during my annual checkup. She asked gentle questions about sleep and appetite and whether I still enjoyed the things I used to enjoy. I lied at first, said I was fine, but she looked at me with such kindness that I broke. Told her about the silence, about sitting in Robert's chair, about feeling like I was disappearing a little more each day. She prescribed medication, a small white pill I took every morning with my coffee. It helped a little. Took the sharp edges off the loneliness. Made it possible to get through the day without crying, but it didn't fill the emptiness. Nothing did, until Elijah. I met Elijah at Silver Oak Rehabilitation Center on a Thursday in September. My friend Patricia had fallen and broken her hip getting out of the bathtub. She was 72 and stubborn as a mule. Refused to use the shower chair her daughter bought her. She was doing physical therapy at Silver Oak, and I'd visit her twice a week. Bring her magazines, People, Good Housekeeping, the occasional National Geographic. Sit with her during lunch in the community dining room. Patricia complained constantly about the food, the physical therapist, the other residents who walked too slowly in the hallways. But I could tell she was scared of losing her independence, of becoming a burden, of not being able to go home. I understood that fear intimately. Elijah was one of the occupational therapists on staff. The first time I saw him, he was helping an elderly man practice using a walker in the hallway. The man was frustrated, nearly in tears, saying he'd never get the hang of it. Elijah didn't rush him, didn't talk down to him, or use that overly cheerful voice some people use with the elderly, like their children. He just stood beside him, patient and steady, encouraging without being condescending. "You're doing great, Mr. Peterson. Look how far you've come since Monday." When the man finally made it to the end of the hallway, Elijah high-fived him. I noticed that. Patricia noticed me noticing. "He's handsome, isn't he?" she said with a sly smile, eyes twinkling. I felt my face get warm. "I wasn't sure you weren't. Dorothy, you've been staring at that man for 5 minutes. I was watching him work. He's good at his job. MMHMM. She took a sip of her terrible coffee. "He's single, you know." "Patricia, what?" "I'm just saying. And he's very sweet. Helped me with my exercises yesterday without making me feel like an invalid." I changed the subject, but I kept noticing him. The second week, Elijah started saying hello when he saw me in the hallway. Just a polite nod, a smile that reached his eyes. "Good morning." "Morning." Nothing more than that. But it was something. The third week, I was sitting in the garden area outside, waiting for Patricia to finish her physical therapy session. It was a beautiful October afternoon. Leaves turning gold and red, the air crisp and clean. I had a book in my lap, but I wasn't reading it. Just staring at the flowers, thinking about nothing and everything. Elijah came out with a cup of coffee and sat on the bench across from me. "Mind if I take my break here?" he asked. Of course not. We didn't talk much at first. Just sat in comfortable silence, watching the birds hop around the flower beds. A cardinal, 2 sparrows, a blue jay that seemed very territorial about the bird bath. After a few minutes, he spoke. "You come here a lot. Family?" "A friend," I said. "Patricia. She's in physical therapy." He nodded slowly. "Mrs. Richardson, room 247. She's doing great. Tough lady." I smiled despite myself. "That's one word for her." He laughed. It was a warm sound. "She keeps us on our toes, that's for sure." "That sounds like Patricia. You're a good friend." A lot of people stop visiting after the first week or two. They mean well, but life gets busy. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just shrugged. He took a sip of his coffee. "I'm Elijah, by the way." "Dorothy. It's nice to officially meet you, Dorothy." The way he said my name made something flutter in my chest, something I thought had died with Robert. The next week, he was there again. Same bench, same coffee. This time, we talked longer. He told me he'd been an occupational therapist for almost 20 years. That he'd started out working with kids, then transitioned to geriatrics about 10 years ago. "Why the change?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother. She had a stroke when I was in my 20s. Watching her go through rehab, seeing how much the therapists impacted her recovery and her dignity, it changed what I wanted to do with my life." "That's beautiful." He smiled. "She was beautiful. Passed away 5 years ago, but I think about her every day. Try to treat my patients the way I wish everyone had treated her." I felt tears sting my eyes. He noticed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "No, it's okay. It's just, my husband died 11 years ago, and sometimes I forget that grief doesn't have an expiration date." He nodded, understanding without needing explanation. "What was his name?" "Robert." "Tell me about him." So I did. I told him about Robert's terrible jokes, his love of crossword puzzles, the way he'd sing off-key in the shower, how he cried at every Pixar movie but pretended he had allergies. Elijah listened, really listened, not with that polite, hurried expression people get when they want you to stop talking. but with his whole attention. Like my memories mattered. Like Robert mattered. When Patricia was discharged a month later, I thought that would be the end of it. But Elijah asked for my number. "I'd like to stay in touch," he said, "if that's okay with you." My heart did something strange. Something I hadn't felt in over a decade. It fluttered. "I'd like that," I heard myself say. I gave him my number with shaking hands. He called 3 days later. "Hi, Dorothy. It's Elijah from Silver Oak." I remember. I was wondering, would you like to get coffee sometime? I almost said no. Almost told him I wasn't ready. That it was too soon. That I was too old for this. But then I thought about Robert. About the way he'd want me to be happy to live. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that very much." We met at a small cafe downtown the following Saturday. I wore my good dress. The navy one with the white collar, pearl earrings, a little lipstick. I felt ridiculous. Like a teenager going on her first date. But when I walked in and saw him standing there, smiling, all the nervousness melted away. We talked for 3 hours. About books and movies and music. About what it felt like to lose someone you loved. About the fear of starting over. He'd been married once, years ago. It didn't work out, no kids. He said he'd spent so much time caring for others that he'd forgotten to build a life of his own. I understood that more than he knew. When he walked me to my car, he took my hand, just for a moment. But it was enough. I drove home with tears in my eyes. Not sad tears. The other kind. The kind that means something inside you is waking up after a very long sleep. I didn't tell Michael and Sharon right away. I wasn't hiding it exactly, I just wanted to keep it to myself for a while. Something that was mine, private, precious. Elijah and I started seeing each other regularly. Coffee dates, long walks in the park, movies on weekday afternoons when the theaters were nearly empty. He made me laugh. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Real laughter, the kind that comes from your belly and makes your cheeks hurt. We took things slowly. He never pushed, never assumed. Always asked before holding my hand, before kissing me goodnight. When he finally did kiss me, standing on my front porch under the yellow glow of the porch light, I felt like a girl again, nervous and excited and terrified all at once. 3 months in, I knew I had to tell my kids, not because I needed permission, but because hiding it was starting to feel like shame, and I wasn't ashamed. I invited them both over for Sunday dinner. Made Robert's favorite pot roast, even though it felt strange cooking it for someone else now. Mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls. Michael arrived first with his wife, Jennifer. She kissed my cheek and complimented the house, even though nothing had changed since the last time she was here. Sharon came 20 minutes later, alone. Her husband was working. Or so she said. We sat around the table. The kids talked about school report cards, soccer games, the school play. Jennifer talked about redecorating their living room. Something about accent walls and throw pillows. I waited until dessert. Apple pie with vanilla ice cream. "I have something I want to share with you all," I said, setting down my fork carefully. The table went quiet. Michael looked up from his pie. "Everything okay, Mom?" "Everything's wonderful, actually." I smiled, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been seeing someone." Sharon's fork clinked against her plate. Loud in the sudden silence. Jennifer's eyebrows went up. Michael blinked. "Seeing someone? Like dating?" "Yes. His name is Elijah. He's an occupational therapist. We met a few months ago, and wait." Sharon set her napkin down slowly. "You're dating?" "Yes, sweetheart. I am." More silence. Not the good kind. The kind that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Michael cleared his throat. That's great, Mom, really." But his voice said something different. Something that sounded like concern mixed with confusion. Jennifer smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. How old is he? 49. The silence got heavier, thick enough to cut. Sharon stared at me. Mom, you're 66. I know how old I am, sweetheart. That's a 17-year difference. I can do math, Sharon. Michael leaned forward, elbows on the table. Mom, we're just surprised. That's all. You haven't mentioned dating anyone in, well, ever, because I wasn't ready. Now I am. Jennifer exchanged a look with Michael. One of those married couple looks that says a whole conversation without words. I saw it. It stung. Well, Michael said carefully, like he was navigating a minefield. We'd love to meet him, wouldn't we, Jen? Jennifer nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. Sharon said nothing. She picked at her pie, took 2 bites, then pushed her plate away. I need to get going, she said, standing abruptly. Early morning tomorrow. Sharon, thanks for dinner, Mom. She left. Didn't even finish her pie. Didn't hug me goodbye. Over the next few weeks, the comments started. Small things. Little digs disguised as concern. Michael called one evening. Hey, Mom. Just checking in. You doing okay? I'm wonderful, honey. Elijah and I went to the farmer's market today. Got the most beautiful sunflowers for That's great. Listen, have you thought about maybe slowing things down? You know, taking your time with this. We've been together for 5 months, Michael, right? Yeah. I just mean, you don't really know him that well yet. I know him well enough. A pause, long enough to hear him breathing. Sure, of course. I just worry about you. That's all. I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine. Okay, well, call if you need anything. Sharon was more direct. She stopped by unannounced one Saturday morning. I was in the garden with Elijah, planting new rose bushes. Yellow ones. Robert had always said yellow roses meant friendship, but I thought they were beautiful regardless of symbolism. Sharon stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching us. Not with curiosity, with something harder. Sharon, I called, waving with my gardening gloves still on. Come meet Elijah. She walked down slowly, each step deliberate. Elijah stood, brushing dirt off his jeans, and extended his hand with a warm, genuine smile. It's so nice to finally meet you. Your mom talks about you all the time. Sharon shook his hand, barely. Like she was afraid of catching something. Hi. That was it. One syllable. She turned to me. Mom, can we talk inside? I glanced at Elijah. He nodded, understanding without needing explanation. I'll keep working on these, he said quietly. Inside, Sharon paced the kitchen like a caged animal. What are you doing? She finally asked. What do you mean? With him. His name is Elijah. And I'm living my life. You barely know him, Mom. I know him better than you think. He's too young for you. The words hit like a slap. I felt something crack inside me, something that had been holding together with spit and prayer. Too young? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Sharon, I'm not dead. I'm 66, not 96. I'm allowed to. I didn't say you were dead. Then what are you saying? She stopped pacing, looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something that hurt worse than anger. Pity, pure, undiluted pity. I'm saying you're vulnerable, Mom. You've been alone for a long time, and I don't want to see you get hurt. Or taken advantage of. Taken advantage of? I repeated slowly. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what to think. You spring this on us out of nowhere. I didn't spring anything. I told you about him. After months of keeping it secret. I wasn't keeping it secret. I was keeping it private. There's a difference. She sighed. Picked up her purse from the counter. I hope you know what you're doing. I do. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like. Like what, Sharon? She bit her lip. Shook her head. Nothing. Forget it. And she left. Just like that. When I went back outside, Elijah was still working on the roses. He didn't look up, didn't ask what happened. He just handed me the trowel and kept digging in silence. I loved him a little more for that. The breaking point came at Michael's youngest son's birthday party 3 months later. Elijah and I had been together for almost 8 months by then. Things were good, really good. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm: dinners at each other's places, weekend trips to antique stores and botanical gardens, quiet evenings reading side by side on the couch. I'd invited him to come with me to the party, meet the whole family properly, let them see what I saw in him, the man who made me laugh, who listened when I talked, who saw me as Dorothy, not just as mom or grandma or the widow down the street. He was nervous. I could tell by the way he kept adjusting his collar in the car on the way over. "They're going to love you," I said, squeezing his hand across the center console. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "What if they don't? Then that's their problem, not yours." But I was nervous too. The party was at Michael's house. Big backyard with a wooden fence. Bounce house for the kids. Tables set up with blue and red decorations, Spider-Man theme. Balloons tied to the mailbox. When we arrived, I saw heads turn. Aunts and uncles, cousins, neighbors, all of them looking, whispering. Jennifer greeted us at the door wearing a forced smile. "Dorothy, so glad you could make it." Her eyes flicked to Elijah, up and down, assessing. "And you must be Elijah. Thank you for having me," he said warmly. "I brought a gift for the birthday boy." He held up a wrapped package, something he'd picked out himself. A science kit. He'd said 7-year-olds loved experiments. How thoughtful. Jennifer took it without really looking at it. "Come on in." But she didn't move to let us pass right away. Just stood there in the doorway, blocking it. Michael appeared behind her, double quotes, "Mom, hey." He shook Elijah's hand. Firm grip, it firm. The kind meant to intimidate. "Good to meet you." "Likewise." We walked into the backyard. Kids were screaming on the bounce house. Adults stood in clusters holding paper plates and red Solo cups. I introduced Elijah to a few relatives. My sister Jean, my cousin Murray, an old neighbor from years ago. Everyone was polite. Too polite. The kind of polite that means they're judging you behind smiles. Sharon showed up an hour later with her family. She barely acknowledged me. Didn't even look at Elijah. We sat at one of the tables, eating hot dogs and watching the kids run around. Elijah tried to make small talk with Michael, asking about his work, complimenting the house, saying something kind about the landscaping. Michael answered, but his tone was flat, distant, like he was checking boxes on a list of social obligations. Then, during cake time, it happened. Everyone gathered around the table to sing happy birthday. The kids were screaming with excitement. Someone lit the candles, 7 of them, shaped like numbers. We sang. The birthday boy blew them out with one big breath. People clapped, and Michael's father-in-law, a man named Richard who I'd always gotten along with before, leaned over and said loud enough for half the table to hear, "Well, Dorothy, I see you brought your friend." The way he said friend made it sound dirty, shameful. I felt Elijah stiffen beside me. "This is Elijah," I said evenly, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was pounding. "My boyfriend." Richard smirked. Actually smirked. "Boyfriend, right? That's what we're calling it now?" A few people laughed. Not loud, not cruel, exactly. But enough. Enough to make my face burn. Enough to make me want to disappear. "He's a bit young for you, isn't he?" Richard continued, emboldened by the laughter. "What is he? Your son's age?" "I'm 49, Elijah said quietly, calmly. But I could hear the tension underneath. 49. Well, that's not too bad then. Only 17 years younger. Richard took a sip of his beer. "Must be nice having a young man around. Help you with the yard work and all that." The implication was clear. Everyone heard it. Elijah put his hand on my knee under the table. A silent message. It's okay. I'm here. We can leave if you want. But I didn't want to leave. I wanted to scream. Michael's wife rushed over with plates of cake, trying to change the subject. Sharon grabbed her daughter and pulled her away from the table. No one said anything. No one defended me. I stood up. Excuse me. I need to use the restroom. I walked into the house on shaking legs, found the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub and put my head in my hands. I didn't cry. I refused to cry. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock. Mom. Sharon's voice. You okay? I opened the door. She was standing there with Michael, both of them looking at me like I was a problem that needed solving. We need to talk, Michael said. About what? About this. Sharon gestured vaguely. This whole situation. What situation? Michael sighed, ran a hand through his hair. Mom, this has to stop. Excuse me? This whole thing with him. I stared at them. Are you serious right now? You're embarrassing yourself, Sharon said, blunt, direct, like ripping off a bandage. The words hit like a punch. Embarrassing myself. Yes. She crossed her arms. You're dating a man young enough to be. Don't, I said sharply. Don't finish that sentence. He's using you, Michael said, his tone softer but no less cutting. For your money, for a place to stay, for whatever he's getting out of this. But it's not love, Mom. It can't be. I felt something break inside me, something that had been holding on by a thread. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, get out of my way. They stepped aside. I walked past them, out of the house, straight to the car. Elijah was already there, waiting. He'd left after I did. Let's go home, I said. He drove. Neither of us spoke the entire way. When we pulled into my driveway, I finally let myself cry. He held me, didn't say a word, just let me fall apart in his arms in the front seat of his car. And I realized something. This man, this kind, patient, gentle man was the only person who'd treated me like I mattered in years. And my own children wanted to take him away from me. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about them as kids. The memories came in flashes, unwanted, painful. Michael at 7, running into the kitchen with a scraped knee from falling off his bike, blood dripping down his shin, tears streaming down his face. He was crying like the world was ending. I picked him up even though he was getting too big for that, sat him on the counter, cleaned the wound with warm water and soap. He winced. It hurts, Mama. I know, baby. But you're so brave. The bravest boy I know. I kissed it. Put a bandage on. Spider-Man. His favorite. He stopped crying almost immediately. Looked up at me with those big brown eyes. You're the best mom ever. I wonder when that changed. When I stopped being the best and started being the problem. Sharon at 10, sitting at this very kitchen table, sobbing because the kids at school called her ugly. Someone made fun of her glasses, her hair, the way she talked. Kids can be so cruel. I held her face in my hands, looked her right in the eyes. You are beautiful, I said firmly, inside and out. And anyone who says otherwise is just jealous of how special you are. She believed me. Back then, my words mattered. Back then, I was someone worth listening to. Michael's oldest boy, Ethan, just 3 years old, falling asleep in my lap during a family movie night. We were watching Finding Nemo. He'd insisted on staying up even though he was clearly exhausted. His little hand curled around my finger, his breath soft and warm against my chest. I'd whispered, "I love you," into his hair. And I meant it with every cell in my body. I would have done anything for him. For all of them. I did do everything for them. And somehow, that still wasn't enough. When did I stop being the hero? When did I become the villain in their story? 2 weeks after the birthday party, a courier knocked on my door. It was a Tuesday morning. I was still in my robe, drinking coffee, reading the newspaper like Robert used to do. I signed for the envelope without thinking much of it. Probably something from the bank, or a subscription renewal, maybe something about the homeowners association. But when I opened it, my legs went weak. Petition for guardianship and conservatorship. I had to read it 3 times before the words made sense. Michael and Sharon were suing me. They wanted legal control over my finances, my medical decisions, my property, my life. The document was thick, official, full of legal language that made my head spin. But certain phrases jumped out. Diminished mental capacity, erratic financial behavior, vulnerability to exploitation by outside parties, unable to make sound decisions regarding personal relationships and finances. They were trying to have me declared incompetent, like I was senilely confused, a danger to myself. My hands shook so badly I dropped the papers. They scattered across the kitchen floor like accusations. I stood there, staring at them, unable to move, unable to breathe. This couldn't be real. My children. My babies. The ones I'd carried and birthed and raised and sacrificed everything for. They were doing this to me. I don't know how long I stood there, minutes, hours. Time stopped meaning anything. Elijah found me on the floor, surrounded by scattered pages, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. He'd come by to drop off groceries. I'd given him a key a month ago. Dorothy, he dropped the bags, knelt beside me. What happened? Are you hurt? I couldn't speak. Could only point at the papers. He gathered them slowly, started reading. I watched his face change as he understood what he was looking at. His jaw tightened. His eyes went dark. This is my fault, he said quietly, voice thick with guilt. No, if I hadn't come into your life, if I'd just left you alone, don't. I grabbed his hand, squeezed it hard. Don't you dare blame yourself. They're doing this because of me. They're doing this because they don't see me as a person anymore. Just a mother, just their property, something they get to control. He pulled me into his arms. I buried my face in his chest and let myself break completely. I'll leave, he whispered into my hair. If that's what it takes to protect you, I'll walk away right now. No. I pulled back, looked him in the eyes. I've spent 11 years being alone, being the widow, the grandmother, the woman everyone forgot about except when they needed something. And then you came along and reminded me I'm still here. I'm still alive. I still matter. And I won't give that up. Not for them. Not for anyone. His eyes were wet. Then we fight. Then we fight. I called a lawyer the next day, Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her 50s who specialized in elder law and family disputes. She had kind eyes and a firm handshake. We met in her office downtown. She reviewed the petition carefully, taking notes, asking questions. Do you have any cognitive issues? She asked. Memory problems? Confusion? Difficulty managing daily tasks? No, nothing like that. Any financial problems? Unpaid bills? Debt? No. My finances are in excellent shape. I have savings, a pension, Social Security. Everything's current and accounted for. Have you made any large, unexplained purchases recently? I bought a new refrigerator last month. The old one died, and I replaced the water heater in August. She made notes. Those sound like reasonable, necessary expenses. They were. What about Murr Crawford? Has he asked you for money? Moved into your home? Pressured you to change your will or transfer any assets? No, never. He pays for half of everything when we go out. He has his own apartment, his own job, his own life. She nodded slowly. So what we have here is adult children who disapprove of your relationship and are trying to use the legal system to control you. Hearing it said out loud like that made it real, made it hurt worse. Yes, I whispered. She set down her pen, looked at me directly. Mrs. Green, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen real cases of elder abuse, financial exploitation, cognitive decline, families trying to protect vulnerable loved ones. She paused. This is not one of those cases. Relief flooded through me. So you'll help me? Absolutely. We're going to go to court. Present evidence of your competency. Show the judge that you're perfectly capable of making your own decisions. And we're going to make your children regret ever filing this petition. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like war. A war one never wanted to fight. The days leading up to the hearing were the worst of my life. Worse than when Robert died. Because at least then, I had my children. I had support. I had people who loved me. Now I had nothing but silence. Michael didn't call, didn't text, didn't respond when I tried to reach out. Sharon blocked my number. I drove by her house one afternoon, desperate to talk to her, to understand, to fix whatever had broken between us. She saw me pull up and closed the curtains, didn't even come to the door. I sat in my car, staring at her house, and wondered when I'd become someone she couldn't even look at. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. Elijah stayed with me, made chamomile tea, sat with me on the couch in the dark. What if they're right? I whispered at 2 a.m. What if I am crazy? What if wanting to be happy again is wrong somehow? He turned to face me, took both my hands in his. Dorothy, listen to me. You are the sanest, strongest, most beautiful person I've ever known. You raised 2 kids alone after your husband died. You built a life. You volunteered. You stayed strong even when you were drowning. And if loving you makes me a villain in their eyes, then I'll wear that title proudly. I cried. He held me, and somewhere in the middle of the night, exhausted and emotionally raw, I fell asleep against his chest. When I woke up at dawn, he was still there, still holding me, still choosing me. We arrived at the courthouse at 8:30 a.m. Mrs. Patterson met us on the steps, went over the plan one more time. Let them present their case first. Don't react. Don't argue. Just let them show their hand. And then, she smiled. Then we show them what real strength looks like. Inside, the courtroom smelled like old wood and broken families. Michael and Sharon sat on one side with their lawyer. Expensive suit. Cold eyes. I sat on the other side with Mrs. Patterson and Elijah. We didn't look at each other. Them and me. My children and the stranger I'd apparently become. The bailiff called the court to order. And my worst nightmare began. Michael and Sharon's lawyer presented their case first. He stood up, straightened his tie, and launched into a speech about concern, about love, about wanting what was best for their mother. It all sounded so reasonable, so caring. He presented evidence, photos of Elijah and me at dinner, at the farmer's market, walking hand in hand through the park, like love was evidence of insanity. He talked about my age, my vulnerability, the significant age gap in the relationship. He called it concerning. Then he called Michael to the stand. My son walked up there in his good suit, raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, and then lied through his teeth. My mother has changed, he said, voice steady, practiced. She's not herself anymore. She's making impulsive decisions, spending time with someone we don't know anything about, pulling away from family. Can you give specific examples? The lawyer asked. She missed Christmas last year. Said she had other plans. That was the first time in 41 years she'd missed Christmas with us. I wanted to scream. I'd invited them, all of them, told them Elijah and I were cooking dinner, and they were welcome to join. Sharon had said they already had plans. Michael said the same. So Elijah and I spent Christmas alone, and now it was being used as evidence against me. She also stopped coming to the kids' events, Michael continued. Soccer games, school plays. She used to never miss them. Another lie. I'd gone to 3 games last season. Sharon had forgotten to tell me about the others, but the judge didn't know that. He just wrote notes and nodded. Sharon took the stand next. She wouldn't look at me, kept her eyes on the lawyer, on the judge, on the floor, anywhere but at her mother. "I'm worried about her," Sharon said, and I almost believed the tremor in her voice. "She's not thinking clearly. This man Elijah, he's too young for her. It's inappropriate, and I think he's taking advantage of her grief, her loneliness." "Has your mother given him money?" the lawyer asked. "Not that I know of, but that's what concerns me. It might be happening and we just don't know about it yet." So I was guilty of something that hadn't even happened. Guilty of a crime she'd invented in her head. The lawyer asked a few more questions, tried to paint a picture of a confused old woman being manipulated by a younger man. And my children let him. Helped him. When he finished, he turned to the judge with a satisfied expression. "Your Honor, we believe Mrs. Green needs protection from herself and from those who might wish to exploit her. We ask that the court grant guardianship to her children so they can ensure her safety and well-being." The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to Mrs. Patterson. "Does the defense wish to present evidence?" She stood. "Yes, Your Honor. But first, Mrs. Green has prepared a personal statement. We ask the court's permission to have it read aloud." The opposing lawyer shot up. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." The judge raised one hand. Silence fell like a hammer. He looked at me, really looked at me, studied my face, my eyes, searching for something. I met his gaze, didn't look away, didn't flinch. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded. "I'll allow it, Mrs. Patterson." Handed him the letter. The one I'd written 3 nights ago at my kitchen table. The one Elijah had helped me edit. The one that held every feeling I couldn't say out loud. The judge unfolded it slowly, adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and began to read. "To the Honorable Court, my name is Dorothy N. Green. I am 66 years old. I have been a widow for 11 years. I raised 2 children who are now adults with families of their own. I worked as a registered nurse for 34 years. I have never been arrested. I have never been hospitalized for psychiatric reasons. I pay my bills on time. I remember my grandchildren's names and birthdays. I know what day of the week it is. I can balance my checkbook. I can drive. I can cook. I can live independently. I am not confused. I am not incompetent. I am in love. And apparently, that is a crime. My children believe that because I have chosen to build a relationship with a man 17 years younger than me, I must be mentally unwell. They believe I am being manipulated, exploited, used. But let me tell you what exploitation really looks like. Exploitation is being forgotten for months at a time until someone needs a babysitter. Exploitation is being treated like a piece of furniture in your own children's lives, useful when necessary, invisible otherwise. Exploitation is being told, over and over, that your feelings don't matter because you're old, and old people are supposed to just sit quietly and wait to die. I refuse. After my husband died, I spent 11 years in silence. 11 years watching life happen to other people while mine stood still. I volunteered. I read books. I tended a garden. I tried to stay busy, but I was drowning, and nobody noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care enough to ask if I was okay. Then I met Elijah Crawford. He didn't save me. I don't need saving. But he saw me. He listened to me. He treated me like a human being with thoughts and feelings and dreams that didn't end the day my husband died. Is he younger than me? Yes. Does that mean I'm incapable of making my own choices? No. Has he asked me for money? No. Has he moved into my home? No. Has he pressured me to change my will or sign over any assets? No. What he has done is make me laugh, make me feel alive, make me believe that my life isn't over just because I've passed 60. My children say they're worried about me, that they love me, that they're doing this for my own good. But if they loved me, they would listen when I speak. If they cared about my well-being, they would want me to be happy. Instead, they want me to be alone, to be convenient, to be the grandmother who bakes cookies and babysits and never asks for anything in return. I am not asking this court to approve of my relationship. I am not asking my children to like Elijah or welcome him into their homes. I am asking this court to recognize that I am still a person, that I still have rights, that my life is still mine to live. I have hurt no one. I have broken no laws. I have made no irresponsible decisions. My only crime is wanting to be happy. And if my children cannot accept that, if they truly believe that loving someone makes me incompetent, then that is their loss, not mine. I will not apologize for choosing life over loneliness. I will not apologize for refusing to disappear. Respectfully, Dorothy and Green. The judge set the letter down carefully. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that rings in your ears. He removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes, put them back on. Then he looked at Michael and Sharon, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried weight. "Let me tell you something," he said. "I've been on this bench for 23 years. I've presided over hundreds of guardianship cases. I've seen real elder abuse, financial exploitation, cognitive decline, families desperately trying to protect loved ones who can no longer protect themselves." He paused. Let the words sink in. This is not one of those cases. Sharon's face went pale. Michael stared at the table. "What I see here," the judge continued, his voice growing firmer, "is a competent woman who has done nothing wrong except choose to live her life on her own terms. And I see two adult children who are more interested in controlling their mother than supporting her." He picked up a document, scanned it. "Your evidence consists of speculation, assumptions, personal disapproval disguised as concern. You have no medical records indicating cognitive impairment, no financial records showing mismanagement, no proof of exploitation or abuse." He set the document down. "What you have is a mother who fell in love, and you can't forgive her for it." The words hung in the air like an indictment. "Does the petitioner have any actual evidence of incompetency?" the judge asked their lawyer. "Medical evaluations? Psychiatric assessments? Anything beyond your client's feelings?" The lawyer shuffled papers. "Your Honor, we have testimony from family members. Testimony from interested parties is not medical evidence, Counselor. Do you have documentation from a licensed physician or psychiatrist stating that Mrs. Green is mentally incompetent?" A long pause. "No, Your Honor. Do you have financial records showing she is unable to manage her affairs?" "No, Your Honor. But then we're done here." The judge's voice was final. "Petition denied." He slammed the gavel. The sound echoed through the courtroom like thunder. "Mrs. Green, you're free to go, and I suggest your children consider what kind of relationship they actually want with their mother. Because this," he gestured at the courtroom, "is not love, it's control, and it ends today." It was over. We walked out of the courthouse into bright afternoon sunlight. The air felt different, lighter, like I could finally breathe again. Mrs. Patterson congratulated me, shook both our hands, told us to call if we needed anything else, but she doubted we would. "That judge just made it very clear that any future attempts would be fruitless," she said with a slight smile. Michael and Sharon left through a side exit. I caught a glimpse of them through the glass doors. Sharon was crying. Michael had his arm around her. They didn't look back, didn't try to speak to me, just disappeared into the parking lot like strangers. Elijah took my hand as we walked to the car. "You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't sure if it was true, because even though I'd won, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. A different kind of loss than when Robert died, but loss nonetheless. "They're my kids," I said quietly, stopping beside the car, "and I don't know if they'll ever forgive me." "For what? Being happy?" for not being what they needed me to be anymore. He turned to face me, put both hands on my shoulders, looked me right in the eyes. Dorothy, you gave them everything. Your time, your energy, your life. You sacrificed and worked and loved them unconditionally. And now it's your turn. If they can't see that, if they can't celebrate your happiness, that's not your failure. It's theirs. I wanted to believe him. I'm still trying to believe him. That evening, I sat in Robert's chair for the first time in 11 years. It felt strange at first, like I was trespassing, like I didn't have permission. But after a few minutes, it felt right. The leather was still soft, still molded to a body, even if it wasn't Robert's anymore. Elijah was in the kitchen making dinner. I could hear him humming, something jazzy and off-key. Smell garlic and olive oil and fresh herbs. The house didn't feel empty anymore. I thought about the letter the judge had read, the words I'd written in anger and hurt and desperate hope. And I realized something important. I wasn't asking permission to live. I was taking my life back. For so long, longer than I'd even realized, I believed that being a mother meant erasing yourself, becoming whatever your children needed. Bending and shrinking and disappearing until there was nothing left but the role. But mothers are people too. We have hearts that break and heal and break again. Dreams that don't die just because we had kids. Desires that don't vanish at 60 or 70 or 80. And we deserve to be loved, not in spite of our age, not despite our wrinkles or gray hair or the years we've lived, but because of everything we are, because we're still here. Still breathing, still capable of joy and passion and connection. I don't know what will happen with Michael and Sharon. Maybe one day they'll understand. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe we'll find a way to rebuild what's been broken. Or maybe we won't. Maybe this is how our story ends. In a courtroom, with a gavel, with silence instead of reconciliation. I hope that's not true, but I can't control it. All I can control is how I choose to live the rest of my life. And I choose happiness. I choose love. One choose me. Elijah appeared in the doorway, dish towel over his shoulder. Dinner's ready. I smiled. The first real smile I'd felt in weeks. I'll be right there. He started to leave, then paused. Looked back at me, double quotes Dorothy. Yeah, I'm proud of you. For fighting. For standing up for yourself, for not letting them take away what we have. Tears stung my eyes. The good kind. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For all of this time, even when it got hard. Even when it would have been easier to walk away. He smiled. That gentle, steady smile that had saved me more times than he'd ever know. I'm not going anywhere, he said simply. And I believed him. Later that night, lying in bed, I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. I'd lost my children's approval, maybe their love, definitely their respect, but I'd gained something more valuable, myself. The version of me that existed beyond mother, beyond widow, beyond the roles I'd been assigned. Just Dorothy, a woman who still had dreams, who still wanted things. Who still deserved to be chosen. And for the first time in 11 years, I felt whole. Not because of Elijah, he didn't complete me, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for permission to live. I'd given it to myself. If this story touched something deep in you, I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been told you're too old to start over? Too old to fall in love? Too old to want something just for yourself? Tell me your story, because you're not alone. Here's the truth they don't want us to know. It's never too late. Not at 50, not at 60, not at 70 or 80 or beyond. As long as you're breathing, you get to choose. You get to live. You get to love. And no one, not your kids, not your family, not society, gets to take that away from you. So subscribe if you believe that. Leave a comment if you fought for your right to be happy. Share this video if you know someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you are not too old. You are not to anything. You are enough, exactly as you are, right now. Thank you for listening to my story. It means more than you know.